This meeting is being recorded.
I should put exclamation point after it. Yeah. It's fun with the kids. They enjoy it. Have you all enjoyed the conference so far? Good. Skip out for a bit. I have to get people into the meeting room first before I start. Good morning to our online people. Renee, I'm sorry that we weren't able to offer the one I did yesterday on Zoom. We've all been using the same Zoom, and if someone else uses the wrong one, then you can't go in and start yours. And so, but we recorded as Arc Pro, and we'll just rename it when we put it online. So it'll be fine. I still recorded it, so you can still watch it in the future.
Oh, great! Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. It was a challenging morning.
I bet.
I'll wait just probably one more minute, you guys, and then we'll get started. You know, people have to walk from different rooms and they might not all be getting out at the same time either. So. Also, ladies, if you do have questions, just type in the chat and I'll probably get to them right at the end and try and answer any questions you got to make it a little easier. Okay, I'm going to start sharing my screen. For you ladies. And Renee, it looks like it's trying to have you as the host in the picture here. Maybe you just turn off your video so we don't have you in the video. There, perfect. Okay, we'll be good, I think. I'm not sure how that's one thing I really have never figured out is how I can make sure it's me that's on the little thing. So we'll go with it. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started today and talk about a seed planting party. So seed planting party is, first of all, for those of you who don't, I teach at Baker. I teach 3 greenhouse management classes. And it's one thing I've really found over the years is that although I might have students help plant one type of seed because that's the one I've assigned to them, I want them to know all the different types of seeds that are available and how to plant them. And so this is something I kind of came up with to make sure that they have a chance not only to learn the different types of seeds that we plant, but also a chance for them to take something home with them, okay, and to have their own garden that they start. So they get a chance to really take ownership of these particular plants in the greenhouse that are theirs. They're taking them home. Oh, sorry, I'm going to hit someone else. So with the seed planting party, one of the things I wanted to ask you guys is how do you currently teach students how to plant seeds? So for any of you out here, how many of you do teach students how to plant seeds? okay, how do you teach them, I guess is the question that I want to ask all of you. So we'll just start over here. What's one way that you teach the kids, students how to start plant seeds?
Well, the first thing I do is basically, we have 2 large greenhouses, and one of them I got grow lights, so very first week of school, basically we plant just a pile of veggies. So I grow kind of veggies in the fall and that we can, like indoor garden stuff. So, and a lot of it's trial and error. So we're seeing, I just go through the process of don't bury them too deep, show them, those things, but then we plant it literally the first week of school. So they can visually see it. And, I just have tons of seeds that, so that's the biggest thing, because it pays off later, is just have them doing it right off the bat. And if they're not doing it correctly or incorrectly, they label it so they can see. So that's kind of my, other than just kind of showing them.
Okay. Does anyone else have a different style that they use besides going through the process? Melissa?
I teach them how to read the information on the packet.
Mhm.
So I kind of get pass those out. We show different examples, and it shows how deep to plant them and how much light, any, and all the information, how to decipher all that code on the back.
Perfect.
I kind of do that too. I make them write them down on a 3x5 card, the bullet points I want, so kind of
Okay.
go through their mind. And we're out in the greenhouse, pull their card out.
Great. Okay.
Also do is germination trials
Mhm.
in terms of the heat and the temperature, or heat and water, moisture, and in different parts of the greenhouse in order for them to get a feel for why it's important to have good environmental conditions.
Good. Good. So it sounds like a lot of you have already that reading.
I do something pretty kind of similar. We do different depths of different seeds, probably some that are too deep, and then we watch, and I found just last year, a pencil eraser hole is the perfect.
Is the perfect amount.
Perfect depth, because if you're like, oh, it's like half your fingernail, and it doesn't, like, so we've got a lot more germination and on time.
Perfect. Yeah. Very good. Okay. So it sounds like a lot of you have some really great methods you're already using to help teach students how to plant seeds. For me, I think this activity helps teach the basics to students, how to identify plants from seed. In particular, seeds look different from each other, and because of their size and because of their shape in some cases, like marigolds, the kids look at that and they're like, how do I plant this in the ground? I'm like, well, just stick it lengthwise, vertical, straight down in the ground. And they're like, oh, okay. But they all look different, and especially herb seeds. That's one in particular that they were so surprised at how small herb seeds are and how close to the surface we got to get them in order to make sure they plant correctly. It also helps teach them how deep to plant the seeds themselves based on their size, how to label their plants correctly. This activity goes into that, their use of container and how big their containers are. We use, with this activity, everyone, I take a box cutter and I cut apart my seed trays into a 5x5 area. And that means that they get to actually plant 5 different types of seeds in their tray. So they get to choose 5 different seeds to plant. And then they also are going to use 5 different labels to label each one. Now, labels for me, by that time of the year, it's not a big deal for them to use 5 labels and to make sure that they label them correctly. But I really like the fact that it gives them a variety of seeds to plant. So I ask them to choose ones that are different sizes and different things like that, but also to talk to their families. Like I'll introduce this one day and have them do some activity on paper to determine what kinds they want, and then talk to their families and see if they want to change up anything by the next day. Because it might be that their families really want them to grow certain things that they can transplant later when they get home. So that's something that I definitely do. And you talked about the pencil eraser depth. I got these from Cash and Carry. They're the wooden caramel apple sticks. And I started using these over the years with the kids because they're pointed at one end, so they're easy to dig into the soil. And it also helps determine for them, and you can use a permanent marker on them to kind of give them an idea how deep to plant them. So you can actually use a marker and just mark the sticks. And then if you can tell them, okay, well, these ones should be to the mark. These ones should be this after the mark. And so it really helps them determine how deep to plant them in the soil. And doesn't matter if they're doing it for their seed planting party or for us seeding in the greenhouse, they're always going to use these types of trays to plant their seeds because it gives them individual root space to grow, and then makes it easier for them to transplant later as well. So these are what the containers that I use with the kids. I thought I'd bring an example for you. I also, oh yeah,
When you order those trays,
Yes.
what is it just a seed starting tray? Or
It's-
is there a certain?
it's a basically a 200, enough for 200. So it's a 10 by 20.
Okay.
And I order them through Stubers. So if you want, I can put in the Google Drive too, like my list of things I order for my plant sale and stuff. So you guys can get an idea of what the item is that I order for these seed trays. So you can acquire them yourselves. I really like using these versus just a big old flat tray that's put soil in. So this particular exercise also teaches them how to use or how much soil to use. So when it comes to soil, obviously we all know that when they put soil all the way to the top, because it's going to settle after it waters. So if they don't put soil all the way to the top, they're really going to have much growing space for their roots underneath. And so it really helps them to understand that concept. Also how to water properly, because they're responsible for their plants from day one. I have nothing to do with their seed planting party. Once they got their plants, they go ahead and take care of them from the time that they start until the time that they take them home. And I have the kids start this particular process about 4 weeks before plant sale, so that when plant sale comes around, they take their projects home with them. They're big enough by that time. They've established themselves in the seed trays. And that way they don't get mistaken for plant sale things that might go out with the customers either. So it really helps in that part. It teaches them how to fertilize. I talked about the different fertilizers, and they get to choose which one they want to use to help their plants along. So that it helps them figure out which ones they should use. It also is I make sure that I have tools at their disposal in the greenhouse. So anything that they need to be successful with their project, I make sure I have on hand. The wooden stakes, the seed trays, the soil, fertilizer types, anything that they want to be able to use, I make a point of having on site in the greenhouse. And by that time, we've already we got all our resources together anyway, and we've got everything else growing. So this is a good time to do this seed planting party because you have everything else growing already. It's something different that you can put into the curriculum with the greenhouse classes. And it teaches them germination rate. So they might have competed to see who can get the best germination for their trays when I had them do just one type, but that they can see also in these ones when they planted 5 different types, what the germination rate is for different types of plants. And peppers, especially, they have to be so patient when they plant pepper seeds because it takes several weeks for the peppers to actually germinate out. And they'll go out there and they'll be, they haven't germinated yet. Like, just be patient, they'll be fine. I do make a point of having the students put their seed planting trays in an area in the greenhouse that is slightly warmer. That way they germinate a little bit faster, and that way they have plenty of sunlight as well. And so that really helps. The only thing I cannot do with these seed trays is have them plant the bigger seeds, like the pumpkins and the cucumbers and the squash, because they're just too big and overwhelming for the little seed trays and they wouldn't root correctly. I did have second semester last year some students that wanted to try and do that. So I provided them a little 4-pack and said, okay, well, you've got this tray for your plants, but that means you only get to do 4 rows in this one. You don't get additional amounts. It's 5 types only. So, and that helped. And the kids had great germination rate on them because we did it separately. Other things, basics that it teaches students is how to monitor the progress of plants and transplanting procedures. So before they take them home, they transplanted themselves with the soil that we had left over. I have them put them into 6-packs that have a bit of a deeper well to them. And that way they can still continue to grow them that way if they need to for a few more weeks before they're ready to put them in the ground. Or if they are students that maybe have limited means, then I provide any additional resources for them to transplant and take them home, including extra containers and soil if we need to send those along as well. So for my students who live in apartments or they live in a rental house where there's limited outdoor space for them to grow things, I want to make sure that they can still be successful with their plants later on. So that's something that we definitely do. And it makes them pay attention to details. This is really important for students, especially if you want them to be successful with seeding. And I found over the years that the more they ask me, they are so engaged in making sure they plant them at the right depth, that they'll continuously ask me, you know, did I plant that right? How far do I go down? And even if they've done the research ahead of time, they're still nervous about it. They want to be successful. So that really helps. Plus, it teaches them some patience and some teamwork. The pictures I'm going to show you next are pictures of our seed planting party from 2 years ago. Obviously, the kids aren't in masks. And I used to sit at a table I had in the greenhouse, and then I had to expand and go to a bigger table because my classes are bigger. So I'll have it laid out on one of the big greenhouse tables. But the kids have to come up and grab one type of seed at a time. So they can't just take all the packages back to themselves and start going. They have to take out the amount of seeds they would need out of the package and then leave it there for the next person to grab as well. You can see in the second picture, that was when they were just starting out. It's harder to see, I know, but each class with different colored labels. So I could check to see, okay, which classes are taking better care of their plants. Is there anyone I really need to kind of hone in on their label? They have to have both the plant type and variety. And on the back of their label, they have to have their name and their class period on there. So I can tell who is which plants in the greenhouse. And if someone is absent one day and they're not able to take care of them, usually one of their friends is like, oh, I'll take care of them. That way they don't die on them, that kind of thing. So they're great about that. And then the picture on the right, the far right, was the growth that we had right before transplanting. So that's basically what they would get to transplanting size before we transplanted them into containers to take them home for the spring. Yes. Yes. I have 6 hose connections in my greenhouse. So each student is in a group anyway. And so they go to their group spot to water their plants. My watering wands have both a mist and a shower and stuff. So they have different types. And so we talk about what to use at different growth stages of the plant's life so that they don't blow their seeds away when they first start watering them in the greenhouse. So that really helps the kids too. Yeah. Some additional skills that have been acquired over the years as a result include the difference in plant growth, what plants look like when they finally come up, because they might have paid closer attention to the ones that they planted in the ground, but not really determined what other things might look like. And it helps them identify their growth stages. Also, how to order seeds online. I go to burpee.com to have students actually look up information and research their type of plant so they know exactly how to care for it in the greenhouse, but also how to care for it when they take it home. So it talks about sunlight requirements, water requirements on there. It gives them germination rate for the seed types. It's a really great resource, all free, to be able to access that. I make sure that I tell them, hey, don't order, okay? Because we're not paying for these. We already have things on hand. So it's important that they have a resource though that they can go to find more information. And I usually have them do the research after they initially put them in the ground. They really want to just put them in the ground first and then, okay, now let's step back and really evaluate how much we need to do to take care of them. And before we start, I always go over with them seed size versus planting depth to make sure they at least plant at the right depth to start with. Other things that I think are additional skills that they acquire as a result of this project is not only how to research plants, but also we do an activity called creating a useful garden. So part of, after we get done with plant sale each year, they get to create a useful garden space assignment. And I have them incorporate the 5 plants plus any additional ones they want to into a garden space activity. We don't necessarily plant the plants there, but it is a virtual or a visual that they might be able to do in the future. And a lot of our students actually have garden spaces already at home with their families or at their grandparents' house, and they help out. And so sometimes they'll go into they'll think of ideas and how they can change up their garden space that they already have available, or create a new one for the future. When I talk to the students too, I talk to them about the fact that, no matter what home space you might have in the future, whether it's an apartment building that has a little balcony, or whether it's a rental house that maybe you can have containers on the deck or patio, or you own your own home one day and you get to decide everything, you can still figure out how to grow plants and create a garden space that might be useful to you. It also goes into direct versus indirect seeding. Obviously, we would be doing indirect seeding. We are planting things in a soil space, and then we'll be putting them right outside. But if they're planting directly into the soil outside, they have to take into account other things, insects and environments and all those things that they would have to account for when they plant seeds in an outdoor setting. So we talk about that. We also go over information about sexual propagation and why it is, how is it that seeds get going and germinate, and what their growing process is, and all of that. It also helps with timing of plants for plant cell. Hillary was talking about, she has a schedule, and I have a schedule with the kids too. But I really want them to understand why it is we plant certain times of the year in that schedule in order to get them to plant cell. And the reason why is because, well, it took them that long to get to that size. But they sometimes don't pay attention to the fact that they have that kind of accounted for until they actually try it themselves and have to be patient for plants to come up and be able to grow to their full capacity. And it makes some really good community connections. One of the connections I made in our community is with a gal with Local Food Works. She works with the local food banks in our area. In Whatcom County, there are 7 local food banks. And so we have worked it so that we plant brassicas, so broccoli, cauliflower, and 2 types of cabbage for seed starts for local food banks. And when we donate them, they're still start plants. So the people who come to get those from the food bank also are gonna have a chance to grow their own plants at home too. So the kids really take ownership of making sure those plants look really good when we plant the seeds correctly and they start to grow. And those are easy growers too. And they're easy to put out in an outdoor setting earlier, because we have to get those out of the greenhouse before plant cell too. So we usually put them out right before spring break, and they take them off our hands then. So this has been a great way too for the kids to learn about seeds and to make some more connections from the community. Plus, a lot of our students and their families are going to those food banks and actually benefiting from those food banks. And so there'll be times when the kids will come back, hey, I got to take some of the brassicas home so that we can plant them in our own garden space because they had visited the food bank that week. So it's always great to make those connections in the community. So at this point, what other skills do you think this activity can teach? I would love to do some brainstorming before our time is up here in 3 minutes. But what are some other skills you guys can think of that this activity might teach them? Oh,
I mean, so I'm trying to think of ones that were not on your list.
okay.
I don't know what skill it is, but it never fails where I say, I put 1 seed per cell and then 20 seeds popping up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Especially the little thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Patience that goes into that.
My favorite one here was we were seeding out trays and there's 3 seed open ones. And I would give kids the packet and they would sign it out. So then I kind of had an idea of who did what, just to double check. And I found peppers the entire packet. Baskets.
Yeah.
Somebody had.
Thanks.
Oh, lovely. It's a rose plant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question about your seeds?
Sure. What questions?
So over the years, I've gotten seeds donated, like leftover seeds. And at this point, some of them, there's just so many, like we can't even, but some of them are like 2016, 2015. And I know that they're still viable, but not necessarily like the germination rates you would expect.
Yeah.
So would you use like fresh seeds for this so that they have
Yes.
the best chance of success?
Yeah, I order seeds every year to make sure I have fresh seeds for my customers and for my students. The seeds that they use are the ones that are left over from what we didn't seed for our plant cell. And so I still make sure there might be a few seed types that we didn't have enough of, or it runs out, partway through one class and the next class didn't get access to them. But I make sure that they know which ones aren't available if they're doing it.
I hate throwing those things away, but I struggle to find use for them just because if we're doing trials or we're doing certain things, it's an extra variable that we can't control.
Yeah.
So I never know what to do with them.
Yeah.
I don't want to just throw them away, but.
The other thing in the Google Drive, not only did I put this presentation, but there's also the activity that I use for the students to plan it out. So it has a list of seeds that are available. And I put in there the PowerPoint, I think, that also shows them different types of seeds and what they look like at the end. So when they're picking plants, they're like, okay, it's not just what look like right now when I put it in the ground, what's it going to turn into? So they know exactly what they're planting, what's supposed to turn out like in the end. So I give them access to that PowerPoint to initially get them going, and then they do the research later. So that way they get their hands dirty and get in the dirt and get them all done. So in a timely manner. This particular activity, when I'm teaching the whole thing, will take about 3 days in class to teach. So.
Can I ask why you choose to do it after you've already seeded versus like before you seeded, so they're learning it before they're actually doing the big scale seeding?
The biggest reason that I do it after we've initially put seeds in is not only because the kids haven't learned each type of seed because they were assigned one, but I have to make sure we have enough seeds for our plants yet first. And if I bought the seeds specifically for our plant cell, I have to make sure that I plant enough for ours first. And that's why we do the leftover seeds. And there's plenty left over because you get packages, of 1,000 seeds that you have to order. There's so much left over anyway. It's great for the kids to be able to have access to those and to make something for themselves. But that's why. Yeah, it's logistics.
You do with some of your leftover seeds too, maybe if you've got from 2015, is talk to your art teacher and see if they want to use them for some art projects.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great idea. Okay, any other questions? All right, well, that's my presentation, everyone. Thank you. I guess we have to go to our next one. So, but check out the Google Drive, and if you have any questions, feel free to give me a call, okay, or email me or whatever. Thanks for coming. Thank you guys for being online with me. They've been semester classes, but we are now changing to a trimester this next year. So I will have 1 greenhouse management second trimester and 2 third trimester. So it's going to be different.
Fortunately, mine are all full credit and year long. So I have them for the entire school year. So we start out, and that's why for this first semester, we fill up the whole greenhouse with one of our whole greenhouses with all veggies and stuff like that. And we get it to the harvest point. But one of the things that I haven't in is, which I think there again teaches one more process, is start them in the seeding tray, so then they have to transplant the little guys versus already starting them in bigger containers. But it does make a huge difference where, you have those kids and just putting it from seeds are cheap. When we want quality and it's come second semester and we're starting with it does really make a huge difference because, they've already seen it. It's like, no, listen, you can do it right or you can do it wrong. If you do it wrong, you're going to see it. It's not going to be the teacher telling you. You are going to see it.
You will see it visually when they come up. You totally will.
And so that is a huge, whoa. Yeah, so I'm not just telling you this because it's my...
Yeah.
I do it the same, similar research and stuff, the first day of class, just because I'm kind of gives them, a look at what's going on and stuff. A quick question for you.
Yes.
If I were to send you some pictures of my greenhouse space, I'm having a hard time visualizing how to I just have set tables and they don't move. They move, but they're, do you think you could give me some ideas of how to get more
Yes.
stuff in there. Okay, cool.
Yes, it has to do with spacing and container size in particular. And yes, I could do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm like,
Camera, could you
I
show
know
us
that.
the tray?
like I'm just doing the same thing, but I'm wondering if I like added little tables on the sides of the greenhouse between the tables. Because I notice most people have like a side table.
Mhm.
or a
Yeah,
length
I have length of table. Mhm.
And I just have 8 tables.
Okay. Yeah, if you can send me pictures of all the space in the greenhouse, including floor space areas too.
Like,
Yeah.
hey, maybe this is great. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I know you guys had questions too in the chat. I'm so sorry. Okay, so you had a question, Renee?
Yeah, we were just wondering if you could hold up the seed tray because I can't.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Your,
So this is my seed tray with the kids, and I've taken the big 10 by 20 ones and cut them down to a 5 by 5 size. And this is the little wooden stake I was talking about that I get from Cash and Carry. They're
Okay.
basically caramel apple sticks. And it's great because they're pointed at one end, so they can determine how far down the stick to plant based on the seed size. So, and these are durable. Kids really have a hard time breaking these, and I can use them year after year. So it's awesome.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
The other question is what kind of fertilizers do you keep on hand? Do you have a variety or just?
I keep a variety on hand. I do use Miracle Grow products for our plant cell, and so that's what I predominantly keep in the greenhouse. But I keep in there both a general purpose one, a bloom and flower one for my last couple weeks of plant cell. I also have the slow release fertilizer, so if they wanted to try that to see which one might work better, they can try that. But it just kind of depends on the availability and stuff. So
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yep. Was there any other questions? AJ, did you have any questions? I'm sorry. I forgot to look for questions in the chat. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. All right. So yeah, have a great day.
Thanks, you too.
Yep.